Okay, the next section we have is arc length and area of a sector. Okay, so let's talk about pizza here. Right. So we have a pizza. Remember that pizzas typically, now depending on the size, they may be cut up in different number of slices. Let's assume that we're cutting our pizza up into 8 slices for ourselves. Okay, so we have it cut in 8 slices there for ourselves. Now, if we think about what we were just doing last section, we can figure out which the measure of each of these angles is going to be, right? How can we figure it out? Well, let's assume that every slice is equal to each other. So we have to, that's just an assumption. And we remember that this is 360 degrees all around this intersection. Well, 360 degrees divided into 8 slices, that's 45 degrees. So each of these slices is 45 degrees. Okay, and hopefully that makes sense to you. Right, they're all 45 degrees. They add up to 360 altogether. Okay. Now let's think about how much pizza you actually get in a slice of in a slice of pizza. Okay, so well, we have to, in answering that question, we have to think about what size pizza are we going to deal with. So a quick search, let me just do a quick search here. Okay, and let's say that you're going to get, a Papa Gino's large pizza. And it says that their large is 14 inches, right? So at Papa Gino's, the large is 14 inches. Okay, so if we have this is talking about the diameter. So say the diameter is 14 inches. Okay, for ourselves. Right? Now, one of the things I want us to get in the habit of, remember when we did circles, we always labeled it radius, diameter, circumference, area. So let's just do that again. So the radius is 7, circumference is 14 pi, because remember circumference is pi times diameter. And the area, which is pi r squared, is 49 pi. So you may remember from the first section that we had of this area unit, we got those measurements there. So from the 8.1 stuff. So we have that. Okay, so that's our information. Now, if we're thinking about, okay, how much in a slice of pizza, right? Well, the amount of pizza you get is the area. Okay. So how much pizza in one slice? Okay, that's going to be using the area. So 49 pi is the total pizza you get. But we just said one slice. Well, remember we cut it up into 8. So we could say, oh, 1/8 of 49 pi. Now, if we're doing it as a math problem, we have that as our answer, 49 pi over 8. But because we're thinking about pizza here, I'm going to put it in my calculator, and I get about 19.24 square inches of pizza. Okay, about 19.24 square inches. Okay, so that's in each one. Now remember, this is 1/8 because there were 8 slices there, and I'm taking the whole pizza and dividing it by 8 there. Okay, and that's just because we knew how many slices there was going to be. Now, some people, they're big fans of the crust. My daughter, right, she always asks, oh, Dad, can I have your crust, right? So for her, it's important, how much crust do you have? So how much crust per slice? Now, if we think about it, how much total crust there is, how much can I take my pencil here? Where's the crust? The crust is around the outside of it, just right here. Okay, that's the crust right there. Okay. So if I look at that, the crust, right, the crust of the pizza is the circumference, and that should, hopefully that makes sense to you, because I just outlined the circle there. You're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. But if I just want one slice, remember, we're just having one out of the 8 slices. So 1/8 of the crust, the entire crust of the circumference, the entire crust is 14 pi. So I'd get 14 pi over 8. If this is a math problem, not a real world problem, I'd reduce this fraction and have 7 pi over 4. But since I'm thinking about pizza, right, it's important to actually give a decimal there. So I would have 5.50 inches of crust, or about 5.5. So about 5 inches of crust. So on every slice, that's about the, if you were going to straighten it out, that'd be the amount of crust you'd have, like, right, 5 inches of crust there going across. Okay, now 14 inches is a pretty small pizza there, right? For our salt, we would like to have, a larger piece of pizza. So let's go to, who has large pizzas? How about the Sal's Pizza? And so let's see, Sal's Pizza. I'm just doing a quick. Okay, I don't know if you guys know Sal's Pizzas around here, right? But they have, their large is a 19-inch. Okay, so what if we Alright, there's Sal's Pizza all around. They're just known to have larger pizzas. Right? If you've never found one of them, you should. I've never actually gotten theirs. Right? But I heard that's good. So it's a 19-inch pizza. So that's again the diameter. Right? Whenever they tell you the size of a pizza, they always give you the diameter of it. Okay. So that means the radius is 9.5. Circumference is 19 pi, and the area is 9.5 squared, which is 90.25 pi. Okay. So, what if the pizza was from Sal's? So we're going to see pizza in one slice. Okay. Let's still make the assumption that there's 8 slices there. So that means we're going to have 1 out of 8, 1/8 of the pizza. And if I'm thinking about the amount of pizza, that's the area there. Okay, and since this is a real world problem, I'm just going to put in my calculator 9.25 pi, and then I'm going to divide that by 8. So in that one, you get 35.44 square inches of pizza. If you look at it, it's almost twice as much pizza because for that, even though the diameter was only a couple inches more, only 5 inches more, right? And the radius was only 2.5 inches. Right? You get a whole lot more pizza for yours there than you did for the other one. So. Okay. Let's think about again. My daughter likes the crust, so the amount of crust per slice. Okay. Well, again, 1/8 because it's 1 out of 8 slices. The crust is 19 pi. So I'll put that in my calculator. 19 pi. I'm going to divide by 8, and I get about 7.46 inches. Alright, so you can see almost 2 inches more crust per slice as well. So everything's larger there. Right? You can see it's a whole lot more pizza. The crust there is 33% larger. Right? So you're getting a whole lot more value there. Okay. So you're saying, wait a sec, this isn't arc length, and how does this relate to arc length and area of a sector? Okay. So here's how. This right here, area of the sector, that's the amount of pizza. Okay, right here, that's the area of a sector. Okay, because a sector is the same as the slice of pizza. Okay, so area of a sector, that's that right there. When we said how much pizza do you have, that's an area of a sector. If you're talking about the arc length, an arc is right here. The arc length is the crust of the pizza. Okay, so if you have a slice of pizza and you find the arc length, that tells you how much crust you have there. Right? So you can see the arc length for this guy is 7.46. The area of the sector for Sal's Pizza was 35.44. Okay, so that's where these math terms come into something that we can really understand for ourselves. Right, a sector and arc length, right, for slices of pizza. Okay. Now, this next page kind of is going to help you to explain what I'm doing here. Okay, and so if we look at it now, these are more mathematical examples. If we look at this, right, and we say, how can we find the arc length for this given circle? Okay, so we see arc length, and we think crust. Okay, when you hear crust, you think that's my circumference. All right, so I go and I make that radius, diameter, circumference, area. Radius is 4, diameter is 8, circumference 8 pi, area 16 pi. I always fill that out. If you just fill that out right away, it helps you. Okay, so what are we doing? Our arc length. Okay, right, the crust, the entire crust, right, is 8 pi. Okay, that's the entire crust. Now, notice here it didn't tell us how many slices we had. So instead, we have something a little different. We know that the whole thing was 360, right? We talked about that here, that the whole thing was 360. Okay? In this one, it tells us that it's 60 degrees out of 360. When we did these ones, it was 45 degrees out of 360. By the way, 45 degrees out of 360, if you were to reduce that fraction, that's 1/8. Okay, we just didn't need it because we knew that there was 8 slices. But when you don't know how many slices there are, you can just take this degrees and put it over 360. Remember, the center is always at a 360, and it will tell you what that angle is going to be. So that's where this comes from. I reduced this fraction to 1/6, so I did 1/6. So I could have figured out that there were 6 slices, and this slice is 1 out of 6 of those slices. Okay, I multiply and reduce the fraction. Leave it right there. It's a math problem. You leave it right there. Okay. If I'm going to do this one, right? So it says the length of the arc. So I start radius, diameter, circumference, area. Radius is 10. Diameter, circumference, area. I want the arc length. That's my crust. So that means I'm going to use the circumference. Okay. It's out of 360. How much out of 360? 135 degrees. Okay. Now, you can just multiply the numerators and then reduce. I would suggest, if you can, to do some kind of reducing here to make it easier. Notice the zeros are going to cancel. There's a 0 in the numerator, 0 in the denominator. Hey, that's 2. That's 2. That can reduce. So I have 135 pi over 18. You want to try to reduce that more if you can. Right? I think they both can be divided by 3. I think those can both be divided by 3. Okay, 15 pi over 2. Okay, and then you can try this one on your own. It's basically the same. I'll have the answer for that one posted online so you can check that you did it right. Okay, looking at the next page. Okay. Oh, notice this one. Right? See how this one says arc GHE, I have it highlighted. If you use that 3 letters, that just means you're going to go the longer way. Right? For these ones, when we have the 2 letters, you go the shorter way. Right? That's called the minor arc. But when you have the 3, then you go the longer. Most of the time, it's going to be highlighted to help you to know which one you're going to do. Okay. Now if we look at the area of the sector, you'll see that this is basically the same thing. I have my radius of 4, my diameter's 8, circumference is 8 pi, area is 16 pi. Area of the sector, that's the amount of pizza in your pizza slice. What's the amount of pizza? That's the area. So that's why I use the 16 pi right there. Notice again it's at 60 out of 360. Okay. Plug the numbers in. Reduce if I can, and then you reduce at the end. If I'm going to do this one, find the other shaded sector. Look at this. The diameter is 12. I always figure this, I always just fill those out real quickly, just to get them done. It's talking about the area of the shaded sector, so I'm going to use that 36 pi. It's nice, it tells you area, so you use the area one. This is 120 degrees out of 360 of the whole area. Oh, those could both be divided by 12. So 36 over 3, which is 12 pi. Leave that pi in there. Okay.